Chapter 15. A Holiday Task. Kenelm Jutton entered the dining hall of the Golden Galleon Hotel in the full crush of the luncheon hour. Nearly every seat was occupied, and small additional tables had been brought in, where floor space permitted, to accommodate latecomers, with the result that many of the tables were almost touching each other. Jutton was beckoned by a waiter to the only vacant table that was visible, and took his seat with the uncomfortable and wholly groundless idea that nearly everyone in the room was staring at him. He was a youngish man of ordinary appearance, quiet of dress, and he could never wholly rid himself of the idea that a fierce light of public scrutiny beat on him. After he had ordered his lunch, there came the unavoidable interval of waiting, with nothing to do but to stare at the flower vase on his table. "What is the name of these roses, do you know?" he asked the waiter. The waiter was shocked and showed his ignorance. "Amy Sylvester Partinglawn," said a voice at Jutton's elbow. The voice came from a pleasant-faced, well-dressed young woman who was sitting at a table that almost touched Jutton's. He thanked her hurriedly and nervously for the information, and made some silly remark about the flowers. "It is a curious thing," said the young woman, "that I should be able to tell you the name of those roses without an effort of memory, because if you were to ask me my name, I should be utterly unable to give it to you." Jutton was shocked at her comment. "What?" he asked awkwardly. "Yes," answered the lady, "I suppose it is a case of partial loss of memory. I was in the train coming down here. My ticket told me that I had come from Victoria and was bound for this place. I had a couple of £5 notes and a sovereign on me, no visiting cards or any other means of identification, and no idea as to who I am. I can only hazily recollect that I have a title. I am Lady Somebody. Beyond that my mind is a blank." "Hadn't you any luggage with you?" asked Jutton. "That is what I didn't know. I knew the name of this hotel and made up my mind to come here, and when the hotel porter who meets the trains asked if I had any luggage, I had to invent a dressing bag and dress basket. I could always pretend that they had gone astray." I gave him the name of Smith, and presently he emerged from a confused pile of luggage and passengers with a dressing bag and dress basket labeled Kestrel Smith. I had to take them. I don't see what else I could have done. Jutton said nothing, but he rather wondered what the lawful owner of the baggage would do. Of course, it was dreadful arriving at a strange hotel with the name of Kestrel Smith, but it would have been worse to have arrived without luggage. Anyhow, I hate causing trouble. Jutton had visions of harassed railway officials and distraught Kestrel Smiths, but he made no attempt to clothe his mental picture in words. The lady continued her story. "Naturally, none of my keys would fit the things, but I told an intelligent page boy that I had lost my keyring, and he had the locks forced in a twinkling. Rather too intelligent, that boy. He will probably end in Dartmoor." "If you feel sure that you have a title," said Jutton, "why not get hold of a peerage and go right through it?" "I tried that. I skimmed through the list of the House of Lords in Whitaker, but a mere printed string of names conveys awfully little to one, you know. If you were an army officer and had lost your identity, you might pore over the army list for months without finding out who you were. I am going on another track. I am trying to find out by various little tests who I am not. That will narrow the range of uncertainty down a bit. You may have noticed, for instance, that I am lunching principally off lobster Newburg. Jutton had not ventured to notice anything of the sort. It's an extravagance, because it's one of the most expensive dishes on the menu. But at any rate it proves that I'm not Lady Starping. She never touches shellfish, and poor Lady Brattleshrub has no digestion at all. If I am her, I shall certainly die in agony in the course of the afternoon, and the duty of finding out who I am will devolve on the press and the police and those sort of people. I shall be past caring. Lady Newford doesn't know one rose from another and she hates men, so she wouldn't have spoken to you in any case. And Lady Mousehilton flirts with every man she meets. I haven't flirted with you, have I? Jutton hastily gave the required assurance. Well, you see, continued the lady, that knocks 4 off the list at once. It'll be rather a lengthy process bringing the list down to 1, said Jutton. Oh, but, of course, there are heaps of them that I couldn't possibly be, women who've got grandchildren or sons old enough to have celebrated their coming of age. I've only got to consider the ones about my own age. I tell you how you might help me this afternoon, if you don't mind. Go through any of the back numbers of Country Life and those sort of papers that you can find in the smoking room, and see if you come across my portrait with infant son or anything of that sort. It won't take you more than 10 minutes. I'll meet you in the lounge about tea time. Thanks awfully. And the fair unknown, having graciously pressed Jutton into the search for her lost identity, rose and left the room. As she passed the young man's table, she halted for a moment and whispered, "Did you notice that I tipped the waiter a shilling? We can cross Lady Ulwhite off the list. She would have died rather than do that." At 5 o'clock, Jutton made his way to the hotel lounge. He had spent a diligent but fruitless quarter of an hour among the illustrated weeklies in the smoking room. His new acquaintance was seated at a small tea table with a waiter hovering in attendance. "I've got rather a useful idea, though. I feel certain that I belong to the Pivot Club. I'll go back to town and ask the hall porter there if there are any letters for me. He knows all the members by sight, and if there are any letters or telephone messages waiting for me, of course, that will solve the problem. If he says there aren't any, I shall say, 'You know who I am, don't you?' So I'll find out anyway." The plan seemed a sound one. A difficulty in its execution suggested itself to Jutton. "Of course," said the lady, and she slipped unobtrusively out of the hotel. Her departure was not, however, altogether unnoticed. 2 gentlemen were strolling past Jutton, and one of them remarked to the other, "Did you see that tall young woman in grey who went out just now? She is the lady." His promenade carried him out of earshot at the critical moment when he was about to disclose the elusive identity. The lady who, Jutton could scarcely run after a total stranger, break into his conversation, and ask him for information concerning a chance passer-by. Besides, it was desirable that he should keep up the appearance of looking after the luggage. In a minute or two, however, the important personage, the man who knew, came strolling back alone. Jutton summoned up all his courage and waylaid him. "I think I heard you say you knew the lady who went out of the hotel a few minutes ago, a tall lady, dressed in grey. Excuse me for asking if you could tell me her name. I've been talking to her for half an hour. She knows all my people and seems to know me, so I suppose I've met her somewhere before, but I'm blessed if I can put a name to her." "Could you?" "Certainly. She's Mrs. Strupe." "Mrs.?" queried Jutton. "Yes. She is the lady champion at golf in my part of the world. An awful good sort, and goes about a good deal in society, but she has an awkward habit of losing her memory every now and then, and gets into all sorts of fixes. She's furious, too, if you make any allusion to it afterwards. Good day, sir. The stranger passed on his way, and before Jatan had time to assimilate his information, he found his whole attention centered on an angry-looking lady who was making loud and fretful-seeming inquiries of the hotel clerks. Has any luggage been brought here from the station by mistake? A dress basket and dressing case, with the name Kestrel Smith? It can't be traced anywhere. I saw it put in at Victoria, that I'll swear. Why, there is my luggage. And the locks have been tampered with. Jatan heard no more. He fled down to the Turkish bath, and stayed there for hours. Saki, glossary, beckoned, to give a signal using hands. Scrutiny, inspection, diligent, showing effort to work. Acquaintance, known, promenade, a public place for walking beside the sea. Waylaid, to stop on the way.